Why everyone seems to have more money than you. After I graduated from college and I started working, I started to notice that some of my friends who weren't doing that well in school were suddenly driving these super nice cars, going on fancy vacations, while I was stuck in the office. And it made me feel poor, and I started wondering, how come everyone around me seems to be richer than I am? But after understanding how money works, and creating a solid financial base for myself, I finally understood what was actually going on. And in today's video, I'm going to share why everyone seems to have more money than you and show you that you're actually not as far behind as you might think. And this starts with point number one, the social media illusion. When you scroll through your feed and you see your friends posting their fancy vacations, remember, you're only seeing a tiny, polished glimpse of their lives. Social media platforms are designed to show you only the best moments. So it's no surprise that it feels like everyone's always living their best life. So when they post their fancy vacation, they might not show that they stayed at a bad hotel or that they only stayed for a day to take all these perfect pictures. And in fact, I've heard some people who even rent out a studio to take photos that make it look like they're traveling in first class or they're flying in a fancy helicopter. Now this goes for super nice things as well. And just because someone is posting about their latest luxury car doesn't mean that they actually own it or that they can actually afford it. Because I know people who have rented out Lamborghinis and post their cars online just so they can seem more successful than they actually are to build more credibility for their business. And I think it's pretty cringe to do that, but it is what it is. And when it comes to seeing them always traveling and always on vacation, in reality, it could just be that they go on a vacation once a year. Now it's just that the algorithm is constantly showing you all your friends' highlight reels at once, so it just seems like everyone's on vacation all the time. Now again, these posts are going to be extremely curated to make your friends look as good as possible, but it doesn't show their entire reality. So don't get so hung up just because everyone online is looking like they're always having the best time. Now, besides just looking good for the camera, there's one thing that they might be doing that is incredibly detrimental to their financial well-being, and that's living above their means. So if you see someone driving a super expensive vehicle, don't assume they're able to afford it comfortably. Now, according to a recent survey of over 1,000 Americans conducted by GoBankingRates.com, 40% say that they have a monthly car payment. So in my opinion, this is a terrible financial decision because after making interest payments on your loan, you're going to be paying more for something that actually loses value over time. So this is considered bad debt and it's something that you should avoid. And there are lots of people who love buying luxury cars because it makes them feel better about themselves. I once knew a guy who drove a $200,000 sports car, but he lived in his parents' attic because most of his paycheck was going towards paying off his car. Now, I also had another friend who wanted to treat herself by buying a Lexus. And at the time, she could afford the monthly car payments because she wasn't paying a lot in rent because she lived with her boyfriend. But when she wanted to break up, she had to stay in the relationship for a few months because she wasn't able to afford rent anywhere else on top of the car payment she had. So having a luxury vehicle trapped these two people from living their fullest lives, which is exactly what you don't want to do. So the sad thing is, I don't even know how much joy they got out of their vehicle after owning the car for a few months. These people bought the car thinking that everyone would admire them, and in reality, most people don't really care about what other people have. This mentality of overpaying and going into debt to buy luxurious items just to show off to people could really ruin you down the line. Because instead of saving for these items and being able to afford them, they're likely using consumer debt or credit cards to buy these things and now worrying about having to pay them off later. And in the worst case, aren't able to make the payments and end up drowning in a cycle of endless debt. Now, this may sound like an exaggerated example, but this is actually how a lot of people live their lives. They don't think about their total budget. They think that whatever they get paid is what they're supposed to spend, and then some. And they don't realize that from their paycheck, they need to save their money for taxes, investing, and an emergency fund when things go wrong. But instead, they spend everything they make from their paycheck, and when given the option to buy something with a loan, they take the largest possible loan available to them. And here's the problem. When they buy these things with a loan, they're often thinking short term.
How short term?
Instead of buying an affordable car with cash that'll last a long time, they might buy the latest sports vehicle. And since they can't afford the latest sports vehicle with cash, they lease it, which means they're essentially renting the car. And after 5 years of payments, they have to return the car and get another one. By living above your means, they're never creating true wealth. They're just stuck in a cycle of buying the next fashionable item. And this brings us to the next issue that some people fall into, which is a lifestyle trap. Some people buy things just based on expectations. For example, doctors and lawyers are known to get paid a lot once they hit their stride in their career. And by that time, they're expected to have a nice house and drive fancy cars. And if they don't, people are going to look at them weird and think, why aren't you buying one? Can you not afford it? Are you not a successful doctor or lawyer? And the reality is, many doctors and lawyers who are right out of med school or law school actually don't have that much money. They start off working at these smaller law firms or working as resident doctors who only make a modest amount while still carrying hundreds of thousands of dollars in student debt. Yeah, law school and med school are expensive, but because they're not a doctor or a lawyer and they assume they're going to be making a lot of money in the future, they start spending more and they get caught in this lifestyle trap. As they earn more, they continue to spend more, leaving them with little assets, no savings, and stuck in a cycle of buying the latest and greatest things just to keep up appearances. Because besides buying a nice house, a fancy car, they now also have to get a membership at their local country club and go on fancy vacations every year, etc, etc. Now on top of that, they're also going to be comparing themselves with other doctors and other lawyers, so the comparison game never ends with them. Now the problem with this lifestyle trap is that these are just superficial things that don't create lasting happiness. Most of these fun toys make you happy for a few weeks or a few months, and after that, it's just another car and it's just another house. You get used to it, and the money you spend doesn't bring you true satisfaction. So we've seen that there are people on social media, we see people living above their means, and we see people caught in a lifestyle trap. But there's actually one other group of people that seems to have more money than you, and that's people who actually do have more money than you. Yes, there are genuinely wealthy people out there who have made generational wealth, and that's okay. But instead of hating on them and feeling jealous, the real question you should be asking is, how did they do it? Now, it's likely that these people have made their money through smart investments or business success. So for those who are truly richer than us, and not just putting on a show, you should try to talk to them and find out how they got to where they are. Study what they did and see how you can emulate that success for yourself. What habits did they build to create true wealth, and how can you implement those habits in your own life? This is actually one of the main ways that I gain my wealth. You see, when I just graduated from college, I started seeing some of my friends buy these nice cars and buy fancy condos because they were told to by their parents that they should get into real estate ASAP. But there's one big problem with that. They couldn't really afford those cars they were buying, and they were buying the wrong types of real estate.
Well, there's only one thing wrong with that.
They bought condos that had low appreciation potential, and they were stuck with these large HOA fees. Meanwhile, I kept driving my mom's old Toyota Corolla, and I kept my rent low by always living with a roommate. And then I started attending real estate meetup groups, and I met genuine investors who were truly wealthy, and they shared their ideas and mentalities with me on how to grow their net worth. Now, by consistently showing up and making these multimillionaires my friends, I learned what to do and what not to do with my money. Most multimillionaires I knew didn't drive super fancy sports cars. They drove humble cars like Toyotas, Hondas, and Fords. And their houses were just another investment to them, not super luxurious mansions. And when they purchased real estate, they made sure it cash flowed, or made sure they got it at a steep discount so they could sell it at a profit for later. Now, you could never tell who the richest guy in the room was because none of them looked like they were worth $1 million. They all look like regular guys. I was really lucky to meet a group of investors like that and apply their lessons to my own life. And by following in their footsteps, I was able to become a millionaire myself a few years later. And if you guys want to learn how to become a millionaire through real estate investing, then you definitely want to sign up to my free webinar with the link down below. So if you're feeling depressed because you think everyone around you is super rich, just realize that you're likely not seeing the full picture. In reality, most of what you're seeing is fake or curated. A lot of it is just social media showing you the highlight reel of all of your friends at the same time. There's also going to be some people who are trying to look rich by flaunting what they have, but in reality, they're spending money that they don't have, getting into huge consumer debt, and getting trapped in a lifestyle that forces them to keep up appearances without the income to support it. And if you do find people who are genuinely rich and not just putting on a show, study what they're doing, follow them, and apply their lessons to your own life. So when everyone around you seems to have more money than you, in reality, they probably don't have anything. Don't fall in the same trap as them, and watch this video where I break down the #1 reason why people stay poor. Thanks for watching, I appreciate you, and I'll see you next time. Take care.